anti-blackness unites us all, but the different flavors by which we survive and innovate, I think is worth it.
Well, here's the thing, right? Because I tell people all the time, and they get frustrated by it, especially when they hear it from a black Republican that can talk about constitutional values better than most of them can. When you sit there and tell people, there's nothing in America that hasn't been touched by race and racism throughout the history of America. Every single thing you can go throughout history and say, and racism had a very significant impact on that. How do we talk about that in a modern context and fix it without either A, hitting the tripwire and having people talk more about their emotions than the solutions, and number two, how do you do it in a way where, like you and me, you're both talking about it, but also saying, and yet I'm optimistic, and yet I choose to love, and yet I choose to build solutions, not just get caught up in the emotions.
I'm going to be disarmingly honest, Lenny. I don't have the answers, but
well, the book goes after that.
Yes,
the book does start going after that.
But what the book does, and what I'm going to do in response to your question, is the same thing. I don't have the answers, and yet that frees us to be curious together. I'm going to quote Dan Allender on the other side of that curiosity. It frees us to be curious about the fact that the more subtle the evil, the more sinister.
And that is a very valid point, because modern times looks much different than the 50s and the 60s. You know, when you talk